Hi, welcome to the Road to Recovery Season 2, Episode 2, sponsored by Project Vision, Community Care Network, Rutland Regional Medical Center, Recovery House, Turning Point Center of Rutland, and Partners for Prevention. My name is Sarah Roy. I work at the Department of Health, Alcohol and Drug Abuse Programs, and I am joined by...
I am Kyle Burditt, and I am the Resource Coordinator at the Turning Point Center.
Thank you. And we're going to talk about some transition times of when we're going into transition into new schools, college-age kids, and how we should talk to our students and young people around substances, because we want to make sure that we're still having conversations. If you have somebody going off to college, just because they're 18 doesn't mean that they know everything that they're supposed to. They might think that they do when they're 18, because we know that. But we want you to make sure you're having a conversation with your kids. So we have a great resource for that, which is parentupvt.org. And you can find a lot of great information on it, including talking points. So actually just talking to your youth, young adults, and setting your expectations for them. So that is a big piece to it. That you disapprove of their use of substances and what you're expecting of them for when they're going off into college. Any other pieces you want to, for the college age, Kyle, what do you think?
For the college, I think that's the most important part, is that honest, open dialogue there around the substances, because they're going to encounter them. And you use the transition times. Those are sort of the hot spots for younger folk. They're a little emotionally charged, a little socially different. So there's a lot of compounding factors that could add to use beyond sort of testing the waters. So that starts with that dialogue. Well,
it's a new group atmosphere too. So if your young one is going off into a residential college, now they're going to be around people from different states, different countries, different backgrounds too. So that piece to it, if you set the example for your young one, that they know what they're going into, and they can then adjust with the people that you're around and their friend group that they come in contact with too.
Exactly. If they've got that solid starting point, then they have a judgment marker as when they're moving forward and engaging the world in a different way. You can take a look at what might not be, I'll use the word normal, although I don't want to,
the normal stuff to it. And then even if we back it off into, so you might have a young one who's going in from middle school into a high school, from intermediate into a middle school, and it's that same thing. So it's new people that they're going to be around. Their brains are just riding with so many kinds of emotions. So setting that boundaries and limits for our youth and our young adults too, to help them as they engage in society and with other people.
Right, I couldn't agree more. This is not just a sort of a collegiate thing. We're not just talking about the older youth that are moving off to college, but also those transitional periods throughout their schooling age. It's just moving through the grades for us, but it's dramatic change for them each and every year. So there are, again, those hot spots, and right back to dialogue, right?
Back to dialogue. And the big thing too is everybody's experiences are different. So the one failing part as us as a parents would be to say, well, I went through that and I turned out fine.
I did fine.
That's not how it is now. With technology, with different pressures, social media, we just need to listen. So dialogue piece, like listening to your youth, but also expressing what you're feeling to them so they understand as well.
Right. I think the key there is open, right? Open dialogue, honest. It's a tough subject, and the reality of it is that kids today are not growing up in the same world. I think just simply technology, let's just use that one component. Technology has changed our society radically. Right. And continues to, Moore's Law, what was it, about every 18 months, right? So really, and it impacts us socially, and it impacts our children. They're the ones that are out there using it more than I am anyway.
Well, they're more tech savvy than any of us could ever be, because think of when we were growing up, we didn't have any of that piece to it. So it's that immediacy and that gratification part too. When we're thinking if they're going through a hard time at school, friends, anything, peer pressures, coping skills, and how they can bring that in, sometimes they turn to social media, but it's not necessarily the best avenue for it.
Right. It may not be the healthiest place to go looking for some emotional work, right? And I think that's the more important factor to consider, is that it's not simply entertainment that we're dealing with. This is a new social environment that is continuing to develop as new platforms. I mean, 12 months ago, nobody knew what a TikTok was, right? And now it's an everyday thing.
True.
And this is a major component of children's lives. That's where they're tapping in to speak with one another and engage with one another. So again, it's mindfulness. It's open dialogue, mindful conversation.
Mindfulness is a great piece too. Even that part of teaching our young ones, our kids, anybody, to just take a moment and just be present and take a deep breath, relax, and try to figure something out. So don't do on an impulse, which is very hard to say. I mean, we can say it as adults because we learn these processes, but as that young brain who just wants to do something right away, but take a breath, like just stop, take a breath, pause, like that's a nice coping skill too, to have that mindfulness. And you can use social media with that too. There are great apps around that about how to even just do breathing techniques, taking mindfulness, listening to something to just like calm you. So there's ways that social media can help, but it also can go on the flip side.
It is a double-edged sword in that way, because technology has become so embedded in our lives and social media is so embedded in our lives. There are useful tools to it. There are useful ways to apply that in your world. I have to say it, mindfulness, right? If you're mindful about how you are absorbing your social media, how you are absorbing your technology, then I think it can be very useful. And it doesn't have to be a harmful thing, but something worth watching and noting that it's that dramatically different from when we were being parented, right?
Yes.
I know what he's going through. Well, you know what? I might not actually know.
True. Because the different pressures and stresses, but it's back to the same thing, open conversation and communication. So that's the big piece we want to emphasize, that even if they're going off to college or they're just transitioning in a school age setting, still having those conversations and still being present in your youth or young adult's life, so they know that you're there as a support and helping them figure out if they have struggles. So noticing little signs too. So it's even signs that maybe they're thinking about trying something or they've tried something. So just shifts in their behavior. So noticing those pieces and talking about it openly.
Exactly, and talking about it openly. Whether we choose to believe it or not, kids are encountering drugs and alcohol at very early ages. Outside of, I suppose, diapers, it's not too early to start a conversation.
Very true.
So that there's always this sense of acknowledgement that it's a potential issue for all of us, and you can't start the conversation too early.
I like how you frame it that way. Yeah, we talk about so many things as our kids are growing up. This should just be another part of the conversation, which gets around destigmatizing it. It's not a negative thing. So how can we bring it into our conversations with our kids as they're growing up?
Exactly, and the destigmatization, mouthful, is becoming increasingly important as we go along, as more and more individuals are reaching out for services. Society has some pretty strong opinions about folks that struggle with substance use disorder. And that necessarily impacts daily lives. It necessarily impacts folks accessing services.
Which is definitely a hard part. But the work that you're doing at Turning Point is helping people to see that you can be successful in what you're trying to do and accomplish. And we can show this other side to recovery, that there is another side to it, and that you can do more and be more if you want to be, and you're there to help that.
Exactly, and we start, one of the tenets of our program is we're judgment-free. And when you start judgment-free with a human being who is suffering,
there you go.
It's not a bad place to begin. And we take every individual as they come in the door Not what they were here with last week, not what they said to me 3 months ago, not what they may have used this morning.
There you go.
Every person comes in the door, it's a new beginning for them and a chance for us to offer them some assistance. And it's one of the ways that we're able to break down that stigma. I had to look up the definition before I came here. The stigma is a mark of disgrace associated with a person or a quality. That really disappointed me. Like, I knew what stigma was, but a mark of disgrace.
That's a hard one.
Yeah. And I don't want to put that on anyone else. No. And when that does get applied to people, stigma can I'll break it down I'm oversimplifying, but it's kind of external, internal.
Yep.
If a provider is stigmatizing alcoholics, addicts, right, thieves, then those individuals know that.
Yep.
So there's this external stigma from an organization that turns into internal stigma because of the knowledge of that. Now I'm looking at myself as nothing more than an addict, alcoholic, a thief, a liar, and I'm not going to go access those services. So it's impacting our world in a very great measure, I guess, by cutting people off from service avenues simply for what really comes down to language choice. Right?
What's the negative self-talk? So we keep talking about open conversation. If you're starting that conversation with that stigmatizing language, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to have anybody open up. They're going to just shut right down.
Exactly. When you start from there, there's really nowhere to go, because what you're really doing is you're picking at a person's shame, right?
True.
And if you're just going to shame me, well, I'm going to clam up. And how long am I supposed to sit here? And that's about the end result.
So even on that piece to it, so we're trying to get the message out that anybody should be and able to access resources and services. And one of the services that's provided through Turning Point are harm reduction bags.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that and how you're giving them out?
We're giving them out en masse. We take in right about 250 bags a month.
Nice.
And I actually brought one with me this afternoon.
Perfect.
And they are just loaded down with information for accessing sort of generic help services, as well as the Turning Point. We put our own flyers in there as well. But they come to us from the state with some basic hygiene stuff. And let me see, doses of Narcan, as well as a large supply of fentanyl test strips. And these strips are designed for sort of the end user. And they've even gone so far as to rethink the nature of these. It used to be that someone had to take some of their product. And looking at it on the street, I had to waste my product to test it. Gotcha. Well, now you can test residual stuff.
Oh, okay. So
wherever I'm setting up my product, I can test that end result. The hope is that they'll find that it's loaded with fentanyl and they won't do it. The reality is that they'll find it's loaded with fentanyl and maybe do a little less.
True.
In either case, we end up with an individual that's alive at the end of it.
True.
And that's really that was really the spark for us to, as an organization, to make the effort to get these out into the community. Is at the end of the day, someone's alive. And we know for a fact that they've been used just that way.
Well, and it's getting the information out in a non-stigmatizing way too, like getting it everywhere. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are. If we provide this information and you need access to it, you can find access to it. So you don't have to go searching somewhere for it. You're out there providing it, and even just giving more access to people that need it.
Exactly, and we approach folks in kind of a run and gun way. We give them out at many of the local hotels, and the expectation is not that I'm there to stop and speak with you. Hey, I'm just hanging these on the door.
Yep.
After 3, 4, 5 runs, people are like, hey guys, how are you? And coming down to talk to us. And there's that engagement we were looking for. We broke down another barrier,
There you go.
provided another resource, right?
You're building another bridge, another connection for them. So they're seeing you as a person that's coming here supporting and not just trying to change something. You're giving something. If they want it, it's there
Great.
for them. If they want to engage, it's even better. So it's just that next step to it. And I know you're also doing some satellite work around the community too, so bringing more resources out to outlying areas in Rutland County.
We have, excuse me, three, we call it our PROP, Peer Recovery Outreach Program, and we have 3 satellite locations. One of them at Castleton University, which is due to restart. We're in Fairhaven and Brandon as well.
Nice.
At CU, we're tapping that younger population. We're there for that transitional period we were talking about a few minutes ago. Just kind of setting ourselves up to be that bridge.
Yeah, and it's the first time that we've really pushed that piece on Castleton University of providing more resources where they're at. Because even though Castleton's just down the road, for a student who wants to access services, that can be a hindrance or a barrier to them, that they can't get to Rutland, to Turning Point, but you're bringing that to them at the university.
Bringing it right to them. And that was, this is one of our COVID babies. That's where the idea was born, and it was just that. We are the Turning Point Center of Rutland County.
There you go.
And Rutland County's huge.
It is.
So we did. We started marching our way across the county, and for just that reason, let's improve access to services, and see what kind of difference that can make. You used the word connection a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
When you take away everything else that we do, the Turning Point Center is in the business of making connections. I just want to connect with somebody. I want to sit down and talk.
It's very true. I know you actually happened to be at Castleton the same day I went and met with Sarah Stern. So she's going to be doing some great work on substance use intervention at Castleton University. And she said the same thing, like it's the connections, building that piece to it and finding more resources now for our university students that even those in the community around Castleton could access as well.
And that's part of our overall plan as the Turning Point Center, is to access the town of, or allow a grant access, give access, provide access
All the above.
to the town of Castleton, as well as the university students. We're very fortunate in pairing up with the university. They've been fabulous since the word go, and we're really excited to start this new semester.
I'm excited for them with Sarah's position too at the university to really maybe identify other students that could be just at that risk level and how we can intervene sooner so we can have those conversations. Back to the conversations, have an open dialogue in providing resources. And it's great for her now that she can say, well, you know what, on campus, you're going to have this access point, so you have something here, so it'll even be better.
Yeah, and we're open to all of those conversations. I want to talk to the person that's guessing. Geez, I don't know. I want to talk to the person whose family may have struggled. I want to talk to the person who is struggling. I want to talk to the person that doesn't know anything at all about any of it.
There you go.
We just want to connect.
When we had that discussion too of, so we think students, but there's also the faculty and staff and anybody that's on campus that might see something that they're like, you know what, I see a student struggling. Where can I give them a resource to? How can I make a better connection for them? And that they don't just block it out. No, have an active dialogue. So we're even trying to figure out how do we do that with our faculty and staff to make sure that they have enough resources.
Right.
So if they identify something too.
Right, and that's that sort of basic education to start a conversation. Right. That's
start a conversation.
To start a conversation. I think we found a theme.
I think we did. That's a good thing. But that leads to all the different resources that we've been talking about. So the health department does parentupvt.org, which is a great site. Access to services, which in your harm reduction bag is the Vermont Help Link, so you can find anything from prevention through treatment and recovery. Turning Point is it's another great website to go to find out all the information for Turning Point of Rutland County. I love how you keep emphasizing that. That's a great push. And even our Partners for Prevention, so the great work that we're doing with Partners for Prevention here in the county too, to try to build up that substance use group that's really having that same focused message that we're talking about.
And that's been one of the most exciting things for me personally and professionally over the course of the last year, is the way so many different organizations are all coming together towards the same mission, towards the same goal, and in relatively similar fashion. So we're making some real headway. There's some great folks out there that want nothing more to help, and
I know, that is a good piece to it. So yeah, our theme is conversation. So talking to anybody, just having a dialogue with people, opening up about things. This has been great. Any other like last minute pieces you want to add?
I think we covered everything that was on my list.
I think we have.
Awesome. So Sarah, thanks so much. It was great to be here.
It was great. It's definitely great. So thank you, Kyle. And this has been our second episode for the Road to Recovery Season 2. And thank you for all the information.